Previously on the show, Damon confessed his misdeeds to both Bonnie and Kai. That mysterious girl, Sarah, turned out to be Zach's daughter. Kai told Bonnie and Damon to prepare for the solar eclipse so they could escape the prison world. But Bonnie uncovered Kai's sinister plan and killed him. Just as Bonnie and Damon were about to head home, Kai reappeared and attacked them. Bonnie used her magic to send Damon out of the prison world. Damon found out that Elena had erased all her memories of him. He went to see her, but Elena didn't want to meet him. Alaric asked Elena to find out if Joe knew about vampires, and eventually Elena discovered that Joe is a witch. Tripp threatened Enzo to expose all the vampires, forcing Stefan and the others to go rescue him. After Damon was captured by vampire hunters, Elena immediately informed Alaric. Alaric was about to rescue Damon when Joe showed up. She was still upset about Alaric hypnotizing her and rejecting her advances, but Alaric had no time for romance right now.
Here's some friendly advice. It's probably a good idea to stay as far away from me as possible.
As Alaric walked away decisively, Joe could only roll her eyes. Damon woke up and Enzo greeted Damon warmly.
Morning, sunshine.
Enzo?
The two unlucky brothers were now aboard the death bus, headed straight for the anti-magic barrier. Enzo sighed, saying their reunion came quickly, but the end came even faster. It was at this moment that Damon realized it was Stefan who had handed Enzo over to the hunters. There were two ways out of the town. Elena and Caroline guarded one road, while Alaric and Stefan were stationed at the other. While they were waiting, Elena told Caroline that after the rescue, she planned to have Alaric restore the memories she had lost. This greatly relieved Caroline. Tripp took the road guarded by Alaric and Stefan. Alaric stepped forward to stop him, pretending his car had broken down, but Tripp was cautious. He neither wanted to help fix the car nor give Alaric a ride. Alaric had no choice but to use force. Tripp slammed on the gas, dragging Alaric into the anti-magic barrier. Without the protection of magic, Damon, Enzo, and Alaric all suffered from their old injuries. To save his brother, Stefan bravely stepped into the barrier. At Damon's request, Stefan helped Enzo first. They supported each other to get out of the boundary. Fortunately, Joe had secretly followed them and immediately started tending to Alaric's wounds. At that moment, Alaric was losing a lot of blood. If he was moved, he might not make it out of the barrier alive. When Alaric was turned into an original, he had died from blood loss after being stabbed in the chest. Joe believed that if she could stop the bleeding, she could save his life. Damon, Stefan, and Enzo watch helplessly from outside the boundary.
Stay with me. Come on.
Although Alaric's life was saved, he felt like he had lost something. After hearing that Alaric was safe, Elena breathed a sigh of relief, but Caroline remained upset. Though Alaric had survived, all the magic on him had been stripped away, meaning he was no longer an original vampire. This also meant that Elena's lost memories could never be restored. Alaric, however, took it in stride. Free from the burden of being a vampire, he could start fresh. Damon, on the other hand, was fuming. He was so close to reuniting with Elena, and now he was back to square one. Would he have to win her over all over again?
Rick said she's happy without me since she's erased me. You know what? I don't want her to be happy. I want her to be miserable, just like I am.
Stefan encouraged his brother not to give up, reminding him that Elena needed comfort right now. After Damon left, Stefan found Caroline and apologized for what had happened before.
Stop making me guess and tell me so we can go back to being friends again.
I don't want to be friends anymore.
Caroline's words seemed to hint at something more, that she had feelings for Stefan. She didn't want to be just friends anymore. But had Stefan realized this? Damon, fueled by alcohol, arrived at Elena's dorm room door while Elena was inside sorting through Damon's belongings.
As a while and put my arms above you and make you unbreakable. She sends in the rain.
Damon's eyes were filled with hope, but he didn't expect that all Elena felt toward him was fear and wariness.
I remember pain. I remember all the terrible things that you did to the people that I care about.
Perhaps because Alaric hadn't died, Elena's memories hadn't returned. Damon's heart sank to rock bottom. The love he had pursued for years had slipped through his fingers. Frustrated, Damon went to take revenge on Alaric. First, he wreaked havoc on the medical equipment. Then he pulled out Alaric's IV. Alaric had turned back into a mortal man. He couldn't withstand Damon's rough treatment. Joe rushed in to defend Alaric. Faced with Damon's snark, Joe didn't back down, retorting until Damon was left speechless. Seeing Damon humiliated brought Alaric a great sense of satisfaction.
She's bossy. I like her.
Meanwhile, with Matt's help, Tripp was finally captured. Matt's original intention was to erase Tripp's memory, ensuring he'd never set foot in the town again. But Tripp had a backup plan. He had trained a group of hunters who, upon his capture, would enact an emergency plan to kidnap Caroline's mother. Stefan, enraged, beat Tripp mercilessly. The hunters proposed a trade, the sheriff in exchange for Tripp, with the swap taking place at the town's border. That evening, Caroline prepared to bring Tripp to exchange for her mother, only to find Tripp unconscious. As Caroline and Stefan argued non-stop, Enzo bluntly pointed out Caroline's feelings for Stefan. This left them both incredibly embarrassed. Sensing the tension, Enzo quickly made his exit.
Tell your mom I send my best.
Elsewhere, Damon learned about a ball happening that night. He showed up uninvited, hoping to be Elena's date. But to his surprise, Elena not only had a date, they were very cozy, even sharing a kiss in front of everyone. Damon gazed at Elena and Liam with a face full of sorrow. When Liam learned about Damon's presence, he confronted Elena asking, "Didn't you say your ex was dead?" Elena was at a loss for how to explain, but Damon stepped in and covered for her.
That's a figure of speech. It's more of a kind of an emotional death. It was a very messy breakup, but we're past that now.
If it were the old Damon, he probably would have snapped Liam's neck on the spot. But in an effort to win Elena's favor, he simply compelled Liam to leave. Damon foolishly hoped that one dance could bring back Elena's memories. He had crossed time and space just to be by Elena's side. How could he give up so easily? But Elena only rebuked him, saying, "All this does is make me feel guilty, nothing more." Damon, however, was hurting far more than she was.
Every moment in agony then erased the memory of you.
Faced with Damon's confession, Elena chose to flee. Alaric had been watching Damon and Elena's progress the whole time. He regretted hypnotizing Elena and wondered if Joe could help, given that she was a witch. Joe explained that, like Alaric, she had also turned into a regular human.
Well, technically, I relinquished my magic and put it away for safekeeping.
Meanwhile, Caroline and the others met the hunters at the border to exchange hostages, and the trade went smoothly. But as soon as Tripp stepped into the barrier, his throat split open, and he died on the spot. It turned out that before the exchange, Enzo had secretly turned Tripp into a vampire without telling anyone. In the prison world, the demon child Kai had gathered the pieces of the Ascendant. He threatened Bonnie to reopen the portal, but Bonnie not only attacked and injured him, she also stole the Ascendant. When Bonnie tried to reassemble the Ascendant, she realized that Kai had hidden a piece. In the prison world, Kai was immortal, and eventually, Bonnie once again fell into his clutches.
So we have an hour until the eclipse. It's time to go home, Bonnie.
This time, the Trouble Queen Elena finally did something right. Out of guilt toward Damon, she offered to enter the anti-magic barrier to retrieve her memories. Damon, who had hit rock bottom, saw a glimmer of hope once more. They arrived at the boundary. Elena resolutely stepped into the demon-breaking boundary, and Damon, who was behind her, couldn't bear to see her. Elena's sealed memories flooded back rapidly, and they were all of her and Damon. At the same time, Elena began to cough up water, with it leaking from her nose and mouth. She was risking her life to regain her memories. Seeing Elena in such pain, Damon immediately pulled her out of the barrier. Damon was full of guilt. He had pushed Elena to this point. Maybe it was time to give up. After leaving the barrier, the memories Elena had glimpsed began to fade, and the compulsion took hold once again. In the end, all Elena could recall were scattered fragments. One night under a sky full of stars, where they planned to go boating on the lake, only to be caught in a sudden downpour.
It started to rain, and then what happened, Damon?
And since I've been gone, you've gotten part of that life back. You're thriving, you're happy.
Damon's words were vague and cryptic, almost like a farewell. Elena asked Damon again, "What really happened that rainy night?" Damon sadly said,
Got cold and muddy. You were miserable, so we got in the car and we drove home.
Damon no longer insisted that Elena retrieve her memories, because sometimes letting go is also a form of love. After Damon left, Liam came looking for Elena. He had investigated the accident victims from that night and discovered that Elena somehow made their wounds heal automatically. coupled with Damon's sudden appearance tonight, Liam concluded that Elena was not only a liar, but a liar full of secrets. Meanwhile, after Alaric dropped Jo off at her house, he noticed a gruesome scar across her abdomen. Just looking at it made him feel pain, and he became curious about the story behind it. Jo explained her tragically twisted family. Her closest brother had cut out her spleen. As mentioned earlier, Kai had killed his siblings, but when it came to his favorite sister, he didn't kill her. He merely cut out her spleen. It turned out Jo was Kai's sister, which explained why she had given up her identity as a witch. In the prison world, the solar eclipse was about to occur, and Kai pressured Bonnie to open the portal. But Bonnie secretly stored her magic inside a teddy bear. Kai can't wait to go back and take revenge. Yet even as the eclipse ended, they remained standing in the same place. Bonnie explained that her magic had disappeared. Kai immediately used siphoning to test her, and found that Bonnie indeed had no magic. But Kai quickly saw through Bonnie's trick.
You put it in the bear. Didn't you?
The teddy bear was gone. Kai roared in anger, as Bonnie had sent the teddy bear back to the real world. Damon was drinking alone in the cemetery. To ease Elena's guilt, he lied to her. That starry night had been interrupted by an unexpected rainstorm, which ruined their plans to go boating. Damon suggested they abandon the boat and head home, but Elena wanted to stay with him in the rain and wait for the dawn.
It'll clear up.
Another love, oh my cheek.
Promise me this is forever.
I promise.
A drunken Damon now stood in the tomb, toasting to the love that had been buried. Suddenly, he saw a teddy bear. It was Bonnie's most treasured toy.
You're still alive.
The young girl had lied to protect her younger siblings, pretending it was a game of hide and seek. They hid under the bed, watching the demon's footsteps get closer. She signaled to her siblings that they must remain silent. But to their horror, the demon returned, their hearts pounding in their chests. This was how Kai had slaughtered his siblings 18 years ago. After Bonnie stored her magic in the teddy bear and sent it back to the real world, Kai brought Bonnie to his old home in Portland. Through his sharp memory and mental calculations, he realized that today was Thanksgiving.
I'm cooking you dinner.
The young demon was unpredictable and erratic. These are the most terrifying kinds of people. In the real world, Elena and Caroline were also preparing for Thanksgiving. Jo arrived to inform Elena and Caroline that Alaric and the others had gone to Portland in search of the Gemini Coven. Damon was determined to save Bonnie. Alaric had been dragged along, and Stefan was using the opportunity to avoid Caroline. When Elena and Caroline learned that Bonnie might still be alive, they were thrilled. While they were on the road, Damon and Alaric teamed up to give Stefan a pep talk, telling him how perfect Caroline was and that he should cherish her.
There are no drawbacks to this woman, Stefan.
She did sleep with you.
See? Another plus.
Damon is shameless. Up ahead was an open field with no buildings in sight. Damon, Alaric, and Stefan were all dumbfounded. But in the prison world, Kai's old home still stood, just as cozy as it was when he left it. Kai couldn't help but reminisce about his siblings who had died at his hands. Alaric pointed out that just because they couldn't see it didn't mean it wasn't there. Damon used Alaric's words to mock Stefan, saying, "Just like your feelings for Caroline."
Is Stefan feeling sensitive about ruining his friendship with Caroline?
See, Stefan? Even the bear knew.
Stefan had had enough. Furious and embarrassed, he snatched the teddy bear and kicked it far away. To their surprise, the teddy bear caused a ripple in the space around them, revealing a brand new house before their eyes. They unintentionally broke the cloaking spell. Meanwhile, Liv and Tyler had also arrived for Thanksgiving dinner. Jo felt an instant connection with Liv, confessing that she felt like they'd met somewhere before. Liam showed up uninvited, intending to apologize to Elena. The group gathered together for the holiday. However, Liv seemed a little down, so Luke tried to cheer her up by showing a video from their childhood. Jo was shaken to her core when she heard the video because she had recorded it. Jo was actually the long-lost sister of Liv and Luke. Years ago, it was Jo who had saved them from Kai's clutches. The reason they didn't recognize each other was that they had all shortened their names. Kai was Jo's twin brother. The children of the Gemini Coven were always born as twins. Liam, being an outsider, was utterly shocked by what he was hearing. Caroline quickly compelled him to leave. Jo continued to recount the tragedy that had befallen their family. There had originally been 4 sets of twins. But Kai, in his bid for leadership, had killed 4 of his siblings. When Kai had tried to eliminate Liv and Luke, Joe had cast an invisibility spell to protect them. Kai, who had been deemed a freak by their parents, could never become the Coven's leader, so he took a dark and extreme path.
Where are they?
After that family disaster, the Gemini Coven teamed up with Bonnie's grandmother to create the prison world, where the young demon, Kai, was banished forever. Joe had renounced her identity as a witch and had been taken in by Bonnie's grandmother. Elsewhere, Alaric found an old photo of Joe and Kai inside the house. Just then they heard a shout behind them. A handsome older man asked, "How do you know Kai?" The man's name was Joshua. He was Joe and Kai's father, as well as the father of Liv and Luke. When Damon shook Joshua's hand, Joshua muttered a spell. Damon didn't think much of it, but Stefan and Alaric looked around in shock. Damon was standing right in front of them, but they couldn't see him. It turned out that Joshua had cast an invisibility spell. He intended to interrogate Damon about everything related to Kai. So will Stefan and Alaric find Damon? Will they rescue Bonnie? Follow me to unlock more mysteries.